What's going on, Guardians? Today I'm going to be doing a bit of a video on how to make trials easier. This isn't necessarily how to go flawless 100% of the time, but it is going to make your time in trials a lot easier, and it's going to make you have a better chance of getting your flawless. I'm going to go over a few things, such as what loadouts you should run, how matchmaking works inside of trials, why you should learn the maps that you're on inside of trials, what are the best team comps you can currently go into trials with, and I'm also going to go over a few changes that are going to be coming very, very soon in trials that are going to make it a lot easier. So without further delay, let's get into the video. The first topic I wanted to cover is going to be learning the maps inside of the Trials of Osiris. Every single week, there is a new Trials map that will be the featured map. Sometimes it's a rotator map. Essentially, what a rotator map is going to be is it's going to be when you have two maps at the same time. I think there's been times where it's three, but essentially, what's going to happen is over the course of the weekend, it's going to rotate over those maps. So and it's I think it's random. So like you could have two games on one and then one on the other, or you could have 1-1, whatever. But that's not as often. The more common one is going to be one map for the whole weekend. That is going to be the map for the Trials of Osiris that weekend. There are a few maps that are more common than others, which this weekend's is actually one of the more common Trials maps. But essentially, the whole point of learning a map is figuring out where there's cover, figuring out where is a sniper lane. So pretty much anywhere somebody's going to try to snipe, and unless you're sniping, you probably shouldn't be there. Any corners you can hide around. I know camping corners with a shotgun's kind of toxic, but if it works, it works. Um, and just pretty much any cheese spots, anything you can figure out about that map before you go into the trials weekend, anything that can give you an advantage and allow you to get that flawless is going to be a huge help. And that's part of the reason that learning these maps is going to be the best, like the best thing you can do. Another reason you would want to figure out on these maps is things like heavy ammo. This is the which map is this? I believe this is the Endless Veil. The Endless Veil is the map currently for Trials of Osiris this weekend, and the heavy ammo spawn is always going to be right here. So that's a great thing to know going into Trials. Essentially, how I practice with different maps is I go into a private match, and what I do is I take it, you can set the game type to whatever you want, and then you pick whatever map you want to practice on. There's 4 pages of these maps. You set the time limit to 30 minutes, the score to 200, and then you set the respawn timer to 1 second. And essentially what you can do is, like right now, I am currently exploring this map. Like, this is a great spot. You could sit and crouch, kind of hit somebody with that shotgun there. But you wouldn't probably know that unless you've played on this map, or if you've done something like this where you can kind of figure out where you're supposed to be going. One of the biggest parts of Destiny 2's Trials of Osiris is quite obviously your loadout. This will include all of your weapons, your subclass, and your mods and exotic armor pieces, as well as pretty much anything else you need to run. Things like ghost shells. Now, Trials of Osiris has gotten, or at least making loadouts for Trials of Osiris has gotten a lot easier since we've gotten the custom loadouts page. This is a very easy tool to use, and I can swap through every single one of my loadouts if I want to. Very easily. And then you also have the mod screen page, which will show every single aspect of your build with just a couple clicks of a button. This makes this one of the easiest ways to make loadouts for trials. Now, as for what you want to have in your loadout, well, in my opinion, it's anything that feels good to you. Now, obviously, you're not going to want to run something like this Ager's Scepter, which is a trace rifle, inside of PvP. It's probably not going to work so well. But something like a shotgun, or right now SMGs are extremely strong, are probably good. Now, if you don't like the SMG playstyle, you can go for something like a pulse rifle, or you can go for a hand cannon, or frankly, you could go for an auto rifle if you really, really wanted to. Pretty much anything that feels good to play with for you. Now, that's for one of your weapons. One of your weapons is going to be a primary. It's going to be something like an SMG. It's going to be something like a hand cannon. It's going to be something like an auto rifle. Now, what do you want for your second weapon? Well, you have three options. You have a sniper rifle, a shotgun, or a fusion rifle. This is not a good example for a fusion rifle. So the difference is you have the shotgun playstyle, which is get right up in their face and shotgun them in the face. This is going to be good for anyone who wants to get up close and personal. It is probably also the easiest of the three to use, but one of the hardest to master. Then you're going to have the fusion rifle. The fusion rifle is probably the second easiest to use and is probably the easiest to master. But it is not as easy to use off the bat as a shotgun, but is a great option. And then you have the sniper. This is going to be, as I said in the intro, or no, it was in the maps discussion. You have certain things called sniper lanes. Now, when you get into a sniper lane, the whole point is you're probably going to have two people sniping at each other. That's the whole point of a sniper lane. And pretty much the whole point is you want to hit that headshot before they do. And how you're going to do that is you're going to pretty much level it with where their head's going to be. And that's going to be the best way to hit that headshot. The thing is with the snipers is it's going to be the hardest to learn, and it's probably going to be the second hardest to master. Just because you can hit those body shots pretty easily and then follow it up with something like a hand cannon, but the mastery is really hitting those headshots consistently. That's what's going to take a sniper from, decent to the top tier weapon. But essentially that's how you're going to make a loadout. How you're going to pick your weapons for a loadout is you're going to take a primary, and you're going to take a special, so a secondary weapon, and that's going to be sniper, shotgun, or a fusion rifle. And then how you pick a heavy weapon. Now, this isn't necessarily as important, as you're not going to get heavy as much, especially in trials. But if you do, right now, grenade launchers are great. They can one-shot pretty easily. I personally run a sword just because they're kind of fun to use. But yeah, that's pretty much anything that feels good to you. And that's pretty much all of it with loadouts. The only thing is you're always going to want to run a special ammo weapon, and you're always going to want to run a primary ammo weapon. Because if you run both specials, it's going to cut off half of your ammo. And then if you run both primaries, you don't have the power of that special weapon. Now, for subclasses, I personally run a lot of healing. This is my favorite thing to use, is going to be the Dawnblade on Warlock. But once again, it's whatever feels good to you. Like I know a lot of people run Stormcaller inside of PvP just because they like this right here, Lightning Surge, for shotgunning. A lot of people run this and they run Blink because you can jump up right in somebody's face and shotgun them. A lot of people have been running Stand and Stasis too. They are very, very strong in the current meta. Um, and honestly, all 5 subclasses have their own place. You just have to figure out how to use them. The next thing is going to be, what mods do you want to use? Now, I use the Teraba. That's going to be my main weapon. This is going to be a secondary weapon that I use when I get up close and personal. This is going to be the weapon that I have out 95% of the time. And because of that, all of my mods are going to be focused on this weapon right here. So if we go over to this mod screen page, which is very, very handy, firstly, you have harmonic targeting. So if you're lucky and you have the Dawnblade subclass as well as the Teraba, which are both solar, you can run harmonic, which is cheaper and also works for your gun. But what you're going to want to do is you're going to want, if you can, run triple targeting in the top slot, triple reloader, especially for something like an SMG. Now, if you're running something like a hand cannon, you're probably going to want to run this as well, and these unflinching and targeting mods are going to be very, very useful on something like a hand cannon. They aren't as needed on an SMG, but they're still helpful. These are the ones that are, these loader mods are going to be what's good on the SMG. But essentially, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to run triple targeting for whatever weapon you're using, triple reloader for whatever weapon you're using, and the unflinching for whatever weapon you're using. Now, for the boots, a lot of people ask, well, what do I run on those? Well, surges work in PvP. Not a lot of people know this, but surges will work in PvP, and it will give you that damage increase. So if you can get, I currently have double surges, but if you do triple surges, it's a 25% damage increase just for picking up an orb of power. Obviously, after that, you're going to want to run things that help you get your abilities back faster, and then you have your stats. Another big part of your loadout that I forgot to mention is going to be your stats. The things you are going to want to focus into are going to depend on what character you're running. I personally run Warlock quite a bit of the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus my recovery and I'm going to focus my discipline. Because if I focus my recovery and my discipline, I get my Phoenix dive back faster and I get my healing grenade back faster. Another thing that you could focus is resilience. Resilience will, for certain weapons, make it harder to kill you. But it is not as important in PvP as it is in PvE. I know a lot of people focus mobility. I personally don't on Warlock, but for hunters, this is what you're going to want to focus. For hunters, you're going to want to focus probably your mobility and your discipline. Just getting those grenades back faster and then just, jumping around the map like hunters do. And then your Titans, you're going to want to run resilience, discipline, and strength. This is the reason part of the reason I don't run Titan as much is you really kind of need 3 different stats on Titan for it to work very, very well. Whereas Warlock and Hunter really only need 2 stats. And I guess Titan, you could kind of drop off the resil or the strength a little bit, but pretty much every class you're going to want discipline. It just helps get that grenade back faster. And then each one has their own specific stat. But that's going to do it for the loadouts. Next up, I will have, I believe, matchmaking or team composition, which both of those are going to be very important, and they're going to be huge, huge topics in this video. The next thing I want to talk about is going to be your perfect team compositions. These are going to be how many players you want to actually have in your team. Now, obviously this used to be 3 people, and 3 people is going to be best, especially if you can have great communication between all 3 players. But as of right now, with the current matchmaking system, you almost want 1 or 2 players just because it's going to be easier in the long run. The thing with 3 players is you're going to be going up against a lot better players, in the sense that you're going to be going up against people that are doing carries with 2 players, or 2 people that are doing a carry and 1 player that is getting carried. Which actually a lot of people do these. The thing is, especially if you do not have full communication between all 3 members of your fire team, you're just going to get clapped in about 2 seconds. It's not going to be a good time. And that's the thing about the perfect team composition. If you do not have somebody you can run with that you are going to be able to talk to, it's almost better if you run solo at the moment, because the current matchmaking system, when you are solo, will try to pair you against other solos. When you are a duo, it will try to pair you with a solo against another duo with another solo. Obviously, this system now makes sense, but to explain this further, I'm going to have to go into matchmaking. The thing with Trials of Osiris matchmaking is it favors different things. The first thing that it's going to favor is whether you are a solo, duo, or trio. If you are a solo, it will try to match you against other solos. If you are a duo, it will try to match you against other duos with a solo. And if you are a trio, it will try to match you against other trios. The next thing it's going to prioritize is connection. The thing about the connection is it's going to try to match you with somebody on your own server. So let's say you're in Eastern North America. It will try to match you with somebody else in Eastern North America. Or if you're in England, it will try to match you with somebody else in England. The next thing that's going to be prioritized is skill. Now, skill isn't as prioritized in the Trials of Osiris as other game modes, but it is still a factor. You're not going to always be going up against people with a 4.0 KD when you have a 0.5 KD, but you're not always going to be going up against people with a 0.5 KD. There are going to be times where you're going up against people with, a 2.0 KD or a 3.0 KD. So that's another big thing about the Trials of Osiris, is it's not necessarily, and this is one of the things I'm going to touch on at the end with the changes, or touch on further at the end with the new changes coming to Trials, is they are completely restructuring the matchmaking system, which could be for the better, but it also could be for the worse as well. We'll just have to see how that is, and once we do see how it is, I'm going to make a video further explaining that. But as for the perfect team composition as of right now, if you can get somebody who also has a mic that you can talk to and communicate with, it's going to be best to go in with a duo. Because you are going to get matched with a solo against another duo with a solo. So as of right now, it is best to do duo Trials of Osiris, almost better than having 3 people. Obviously, like I said, you can go in with 3 people and you can go in solo. A lot of times I will go in solo, or I will go in with 3 people. But that's going to do it for this part of the video. Next, I will be going over some of the changes that are going to be made in the Trials of Osiris that are going to very heavily impact your gameplay and how easy the Trials of Osiris is, and how easy it's going to be to go flawless in the Trials of Osiris. The next part of this video is going to be putting all of this knowledge that I have just given you into practice. Now, how do you do this? Well, when you load into a game of Trials of Osiris, depending on who you're loading in with, if you're loading in solo, it'll be 2 random people or a random duo. If you are doing a duo, it will be a random solo. And if you are loading in as a 3-person fire team, the 2 other people that will be with you are going to be your fire team that you have picked. One of the biggest things that not a lot of people do is go for revives. The thing is, if you can go for a teammate's revive, and let's say it's a 1 versus 1 situation, It's you and another guy on the other team that are the only ones alive. Obviously, it is going to be easier if you revive your teammate before you go after this guy. Because if you go after him solo, there's a chance that he could beat you in that 1v1 situation. Or he could get a revive on his teammate and it becomes a 2v1 situation. When realistically, if you had gotten the revive on your teammate, there's a chance you could turn it into a 2v1 situation or even a 3v1 situation if you're able to get your third teammate's revive. The next thing that you're going to want to put into practice is knowing your loadout. And this is where a lot of people will say warm up. So one of the things you can do is you can go into a lesser game like Rumble or even Comp. It's not as bad as Trials of Osiris, and you can use your loadout to get used to it. You can play a couple games, just kind of get the feel for your loadout, and then you can go into the Trials of Osiris. The next thing is, obviously, you're going to want to pick up a card, and you are going to want to pick up the Passage of Mercy. I will mention that a little bit at the end of this video and why it is one of the most important passages in the game, but it essentially makes getting your flawless so much easier. The next thing that I see a lot of people not do is play to your range. If you're running an SMG and a shotgun, obviously you're not going to have the longest range weapons. So if you're fighting, let's say, somebody with a hand cannon, they're probably going to outrange you. Another thing is not tuning your loadouts to a map. If you're on a very long range map and you're running a hand cannon, if you're running a SMG and a shotgun, it's probably not going to work out so well for you. That's where you might want to switch your SMG to something like a pulse rifle, just so you have a little bit longer ranges. Essentially, the biggest part of the Trials of Osiris is playing as a team and being able to take on other members of a team. Another thing I don't see a lot of players do is stay together. One of the biggest parts of the Trials of Osiris is if you can stay together with your team, that can potentially be a 3 versus 2 situation if one of their members flanks. What flanking is you essentially use the map's cover to go around the other side of the team and try to push them from behind. This is a good tactic, but only if you're comfortable yourself. If you're the one who is going to flank, it's only going to work if you are comfortable with taking out at least 1 to 2 members of that team, if not the whole team. Because as I was about to say, there's a chance that that team is sticking together, and obviously it doesn't matter how good you are. If you have 3 people shooting you at the same time, likelihood is you're going to lose that fight. But that is why I will say always stay together as a team. There is only one time that I will say to spread out, and that is going to be if they are running certain weapons, such as the Cloud Strike. I mentioned this in my exotic PvE weapons video, but this weapon is also very good for PvP in the sense that if you get a headshot snipe, you can take out the whole team with that collateral lightning strike. And I've seen this way too many times for comfort on my teammates. But that is, if somebody on the other team is running a Cloud Strike, that is a time I would say don't go into a sniper lane as a group. The next time I would say don't stick together is when there is a one-off super, something like a Nova Bomb or a Blade Barrage, that the other team is ready to use. Because if they use that and you are all grouped up as a team, they can take you out in one fell strike. This is a huge issue inside of Trials and can lose you the game very, very quickly. But other than that, what you should be doing is staying together. If it is a capture zone Trials, you should try to go for the zone. If you can't go for the zone and the other team was able to get there first, try to go for a position that has a good vantage point of the zone and try to pick them off from there. The next thing that I'm going to go over is the changes that are coming to Trials that are going to make it much, much easier. And I'm going to get into those right about now. as I said before, the Trials of Osiris could be getting easier than ever on how to get the flawless going into the next season. And I think these changes are going to go into effect on the mid-season patch. So I think that launches this week. But essentially, they are now going to have soft pools. And initially prefers not to blend the pools, but will, if necessary, to find a good game quickly. So pretty much, you're not going to go up against people who've already gone flawless for the week. You're not going to go up against your Grenadier Jakes as of when you're trying to go for your first flawless on Saturday, but he's already gone flawless 17 times. You'll have the challenger pool. This is where most players who currently play trials on a week-to-week basis will go. This is going to be your more experienced players. This is mainly your normal players. It's solely based on connection. It's not based on tickets, wins on tickets, or skill. So pretty much this is all going to be based on connection. So it's all going to be based on, okay, this person is in the Northeastern America. We're going to match him with somebody else who's in Northeastern America. The practice pool, this is targeted for new or less experienced players. So newer players, it's based on connection and weekly performance. Players with a flawed card can play in this pool. Stomp protection, so if you're constantly struggling, they'll give you an easier opponent, yada yada yada. Updates to passages. This is what's going to make flawless so much easier. So wealth will now reward extra trials rank. So essentially, if you're going to want to level up, Saint 14, wealth is going to be where it's at. This is going to give you more of those ranks, so you're going to get more engrams. Now, this is where things are going to get much, much easier for your people going flawless. Mercy will now forgive 2 losses if you have not been flawless for the week. Reverts to its old behavior of forgiving a single loss once you go flawless. So essentially, the first time you pick up a Mercy passage for the week, you can lose 2 games before you lose your flawless. So it is going to be a great option for those people just trying to get that flawless chest and get out. This is going to be what I'm going to have people pick up. The only issue I see with this, and this is why I said it might make things harder, the bad thing is all of your carry streamers are going to see this and go, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset every single time before I go to the lighthouse. The reason being is they will always have those 2 losses on the card, so it won't revert back. That, or you're just going to have the people in there, and then if they lose twice, it won't be an issue. We'll have a new flawless emblem, and they're going to change to get the flawless title. So they also said they're going to experiment with zone capture elimination, which has been renamed Domination, and new introductory quest. So essentially, there's also a lot more stuff in this. They are going to add more diversity inside of the Trials of Osiris. They said stuff about having new game modes and stuff. It's a little bit further up here. The fire team matchmaking has already been enabled. We have a few new Trials labs scheduled for this season. So that is going to be it for the changes that are currently coming to the Trials of Osiris. The big one is going to be, as I said, the Mercy. Also the fact that you're going to have this practice pool, and then you're going to have the challenger pool. These things are going to make it so much easier to go flawless. Now, these aren't enabled, I don't believe, until the mid-season patch, but as I said, this goes live on Tuesday. So trials next weekend should be so much easier than it is this weekend. And as for the last couple pieces of advice that you can do while inside of the Trials of Osiris, the first thing is going to go back to your loadout. First thing is, as I said, it's always something that feels comfortable on your hand. So even if you're not winning because of that loadout, don't switch it, because that's just going to make you have to switch to a different loadout and make you have to learn that loadout all over again. The next thing is, never give up. There's been times I have been 4-0. The enemy team's up by 4 points. They're about to win the game, and we bring it back. It is one of the hardest things to do. However, it's always possible. So never give up while you're inside of the Trials of Osiris, because you always have a chance to get a victory. That's going to be it from me, guys. Aegon out. Good luck in your Trials of Osiris games, and Aegon out.